Um, Good afternoon, everyone. I've just come in. I'm not going to speak for too long. I'll let you sort of dig into the workshops and come and visit to sort of get greater detail on once you've finalised what it is that you're going to be doing in the workshops. But I did just want to bring a few key points to your attention early on and grab you as a group and hopefully stop having to repeat this very simple information. And it is relatively simple, but repeating it to you all as individuals, it's much more effective if I can grab you all collectively today. So I've got a couple of things up here, a couple of images that I'm just going to pull up. In fact, first of all, I might just start with the workshop's website. Can I ask, has anyone been into the workshops within the School of Architecture and Urban Design as yet? Two? Great. Has anyone done the inductions, the workshop induction, the walkthrough induction in O Week? Last year? Okay. You'll still be able to access the workshop this year based on that, but there have been a few changes since then. So there is actually a new workshop downstairs here rather than the old workshop that was in Building 8. To access the workshops, you basically need to do the online safety induction. That's the only prerequisite to come into the workshops during supervised hours. That, for people that have done it before, it's slightly revised. You will all need to do it again. If you haven't done it this year, you will need to do that before you come into the workshops. It's on the OH&S page. If we look at the website, OH&S, this page talks about what we need to do. The general safety test, that's where you go. Complete that online. You can do it 3 o'clock in the morning. You can do it whenever you want. You need to be logged in via your RMIT Gmail address. Once you've completed that, you can access the workshops as long as you're wearing closed footwear. That's pretty much the only other thing that's going to stop you getting into the workshops. For unsupervised access, so access to the lasers, the new workshop downstairs here does run in an unsupervised state where you can access it where the lasers are 24 hours a day, and the soft modelling space, which is room 5, is open from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. But that will require you to do the Design Hub workshop and EPL test and actually do the workshop safety induction, which is that walkthrough tour. Happens every Monday morning at 9:30 in the workshop downstairs here. This is a truncated tour for people that have done it before in O Week or in first year. If you've done it this year in O Week, then you're fine. If you've done it in previous years, you will need to redo that because there's important safety information, particularly around the spray booth that's accessible down there and the evacuation details for this building. So this indicates what you need to do to come into the workshops. Look through the website for other resources and information, but I won't go any further into this now, and I'll come to a couple of basic images. So it sounds as if a lot of people are going to be doing one of two things, either making some sort of concrete form or doing some sort of timber joinery. This is basically the most simple join that you can find. It's just a butt join. The reason I've got this up here in this format for you to easily understand is if you're making some kind of concrete form, you're going to need to make a box around that form or to cast into. This is essentially the simplest way for you to make that box. You could make a really nice mitered box or dovetail box or something as crazy as you want, and if you're doing more of the sort of timber joinery side of the project, you might want to go down that path. But if you're just making a box to pour concrete into, this is probably the best approach to take. If I go to this is another fairly simplistic sort of graphic to show you how to make that box. Surprisingly, we were answering questions about how to do this on a several times a day basis for previous projects. So this little graphic, and Atta's got this, which you can share with everyone after the fact as well. If you're doing that butt join, you can see here the connection across here, this length of material is shorter than the length up the long side. Okay, you need to take into consideration how thick your material is, and then you can start to map out a simple box with this sort of butt joint. Surprisingly, a lot of people just cut everything the same length, all four sides the same length, and then wonder why they get a rectangle as the outcome. So the one other graphic that's going to help make this just smooth, this is, now we're getting into the more advanced part of the graphics. The simplest way to, well, there's a couple of ways. If you're just doing those butt joints and you haven't got a lot of concrete going in, you can probably just put masking tape on the corners. That's probably enough to hold your box together for casting into. If you're only going up by maybe, say you're doing something 200 by 200 millimeters and only 50 millimeters high, a bit of masking tape on the corners is probably enough for what you're doing. If you're doing something bigger, those corners are going to be under stress. You're going to want to put some sort of fixing through, probably a screw. This shows us the correct way, or the strongest way, to get a screw to hold your joints together. If you have a look at the top piece of material, this opening across the hole is wider and is wide enough for the screw to go through. You can just push it through that hole. You measure the screw, even if you just hold the screw up in one hand and hold a drill bit up next to it and line them up so that you can see that one is bigger than the other. Basically, the drill bit wants to be the same size or slightly bigger, so that when you put the screw into this piece of timber, it just pushes through by hand, or just drops in if you hold it vertically. This hole underneath here is actually a smaller hole, so you're going to need two drill bits. You need one for drilling the top hole, and then this second pilot hole at the bottom is thinner, so the ribs of the screw actually grab on and it pulls the top part tightly against the bottom substrate. If you do this for any of your joints, if you are making a bigger forming box, or you need to join anything together with screws, this is going to give you a very strong joint. You might put glue in between as well, and then realistically you can take the screws out afterwards, and the screws are just acting as a clamp to hold it together while the glue goes off. So with these couple of simple little graphics that I've just shown now, hopefully by delivering it to all of you collectively, not many of you will have to ask technical stuff. By all means, do ask technical stuff if you're not sure. Once you start putting these things together in the workshops, there's technical staff downstairs in this workshop, 9 to 5, and also over in the Building 49 workshop. You've got access to both of those spaces. I would imagine for the concrete forming, you're probably better situated in Gossard. That's where we have concrete. It's a larger space, and it's currently having a new wet area built in it, which will be more suitable for the concrete forming sort of projects. If you're doing a timber-based joinery project, you can really take your pick across either workshop. They're both fairly well kitted out for that sort of material. The final thing that I will pull up here is a manual handling poster. This is on our website as well, and this just outlines a consideration before you start your project. You've then got to get it out of the workshop to the site where you're presenting it, and also into the level 3 of the design hub out here for exhibition as well. We've got a couple of restrictions that affect movement of things out of workshops. If it's over 12 kilos in weight, or it's larger than 600 millimeters cubed, then it requires movement by Allied Pickford's RMIT removal service. We can't let you pick it up and walk out onto the footpath and risk hurting yourself or a pedestrian or anyone else in the public. So it needs to be moved in this regard. So if you keep that in mind before you undertake the project, to get a bit of understanding of how big it's going to be and what it's going to weigh as completion, that may inform what you undertake before you start. If you can keep it under 12 kilos, you haven't got a problem. Once it gets over that, you will need to speak to technical staff, and we'll need to speak with the landscape architecture program as well, about funding the movement of that stuff across campus. So that's it in a nutshell. Has anyone got any questions? Yep.
After we do the induction, do we then have to register our student cards with workshop space?
This is the weakest link, unfortunately, in this system at the moment. The majority of students have at some point taken that paper copy of a security access request form over to security at some point in their career at RMIT. If you've done that once, your student number's on their system. If you haven't done it before, I can send them your student number and name and say this student should have swipe access, and they haven't got a card to match it to. So at the moment, and there is, actually I'll pull this up, these posters are just going up around the workshops, and it's on the homepage of the website. This is made by the same pirate that made the last graphic. This explains what level of access you may be seeking and how to get that. So if you do want that unsupervised access, one of those steps is to complete that paper form. I think this one here, this QR code takes you straight to a copy of that form. It needs to be filled in. I've now got a basically an inbox down in the office downstairs in building 1, in the Design Hub workshop, room 6, the technician's office. If you're unsure, I'd say just fill out that form and bring it in. I'm submitting them basically on a 2-day rotation at the moment to security. Sorry?
We just drop that form in your
Yes.
inbox.
Yep. And so I'm just getting a few of them sort of every day or two now. So yeah, it's unfortunately the RMIT swipe access system is not as seamless as we'd like it to be, but this hopefully will help answer some of those questions and give that level of access.
Okay.
Great. Excellent.
Thanks very much.
Thanks
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.